poppin'? It's Najja Iman. Welcome back to Light the World, a podcast for young Christians on a mission to light the world. If you're new here, hey babe, thanks for stopping by. If you're not new, hey babe, thanks for coming back. Today's topic is gonna be a little more personal. I mean, honestly, everything I talk about is very personal to me, but this one is just a little bit more personal. I want to talk about how to actually love your neighbor, because God has been teaching me how to actually love my neighbor. And I feel like this topic is super relevant right now, especially because of the election season. I'm uploading this video on November 2nd. So the election is on November 5th. And y'all already know how much division politics causes. I want to talk about that because it's really easy to get distracted in the midst of like political angst and, you know what I'm saying, the election season, and come up against the opposite party, you know, somebody that doesn't agree with your stance and share the same values and views as you. And it's really easy to like fall into that like hatred trap. For me personally, I know that I want to make sure that I'm operating from a place of love, of Christ-likeness, and behaving the way Jesus would want me to behave. I've been literally thinking so much lately about what would Jesus do, especially if he was alive in 2024 and had to experience presidential elections. Like, what would that look like? So that's what I want to talk about today: how to love your neighbor, how to actually love your neighbor the way that the Bible instructs us to love our neighbors. So the song of the day is Holdin' Me by sstedi. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Bro, this song is literally the best Christian R&B song I've ever heard. She sounds like Brent Faiyaz. Like, what? This song has been on repeat. She did her big one. Y'all need to go listen to it like right after you watch this episode. Anyway, it's election season, and what I've been noticing is that there's so much division happening right now. Like, people from both sides of the spectrum, whether you are a conservative or a liberal or whatever else, it's like we ops, bro. I think right now during this time especially, it's so easy to get distracted by differences and cause those differences to lead you to like operate from a place of hate. And what I've been learning is that just because someone thinks differently than me, has different opinions, has a different worldview, does not mean that they're not still my neighbor and that I'm not called to love them. God calls us to literally love our neighbors, period. The greatest commandment is to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. So how do you love your neighbor? 1 John 3:18 says, "Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions." How do we love one another? Not just with words, but with actions, especially as Christians. Like, if we're supposed to be image bearers of Christ and examples for the world, how do we love the world? Our worldly neighbors, how do we love the world? How do we do that? Even if they might not agree with the things that we agree with, how do we do that? And just for transparency, you guys, I used to have a very deep, I'm going to say hatred for people. Like, that used to be a part of my brand. I used to hate people, and I especially used to hate men. It was my duty to be known as a misandrist. I wore that title like it was my first name. Like, I was a proud misandrist. I hated men, okay? I did not like people. I operated from a place of rage and like bitterness, and I walked through life just being angry at people and especially men. God pulled me out of that. And when he did pull me out of that, he helped me realize like the purpose of the commandments that he gives us to love one another. He made me realize that that's not just a suggestion, it's a command. Regardless of what somebody thinks, how somebody lives, how somebody looks, how different someone may be from me, none of that matters. God calls us to love each other, and that's it. But I feel like when you don't have an idea of what love looks like, when you don't have an idea of what your neighbor looks like, or what a neighbor looks like, what a neighbor is, then you're gonna do it wrong. A mini testimony, I guess. Like, I realized that there's literally no way that I could call myself a Christian and hate people, hate men at the same time. It's literally an oxymoron, and it's disrespectful. So God has been showing me how to love people better, how to love people the way that he wants me to love people, not the way that I want to love people, not how I want to love a select group of people and hate another group of people, but love everybody, period. And it's hard. It is so hard, but there's no excuse for hatred. There are people that will hate you. There are people that will hate me. But how do I keep a sober mind and stay fixed in the fact that God commands me to love them, period? Even if they don't love me, like, how do I do that? I'm just gonna read the Bible, because honestly, like, when talking about stuff like this, my personal opinion doesn't matter at all. Let's look at James. I'm going to read James 2, 8 through 9, and then James 13. It says, yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself. But if you favor some people over others, you are committing a sin. You are guilty of breaking the law. Verse 13 says, there will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. This verse really helps me understand that we're supposed to be fair, I guess, in our treatment of everybody, even in our minds, the way we think about people. And it's hard, you guys. It's so hard. There are times when I find myself holding on to an idea that I have about someone, a thought that I have about someone that might be let's just say someone that's racist or something. It's hard to love someone that hates me. It's hard. But oh my goodness, what does holding on to hatred really do? That's what I've been thinking about. What does hatred produce? It doesn't produce anything beneficial. I think it does more harm to me than it does to the other person. Luke 6, 27 through 36, emphasis on verse 28 says, the header says love for enemies. But to you who are willing to listen, I say love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, offer the other cheek. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt. Give to anyone who asks. And when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. If you only love those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even the sinners love those who love them. And if you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Even sinners do that much. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, where he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. You must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. Jesus says to love your enemies. Do you guys realize, that is so hard to do? Yes, you can say it all day, up and down, love your enemies, until you really sit down and you go to God and you try to pray for somebody that hates you. People don't do that. That's not a normal thing for us to do as humans, is to pray for people that hate our guts. That's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. And this is why we are told to literally pick up our cross, deny ourselves, because deep down inside of my core, I don't want to pray for somebody that hates me. What? I don't want to do that. I don't want to be kind to someone that hates me. I don't want to love someone that doesn't love me back. But it doesn't matter what I want to do, what I don't want to do. Jesus is clear. Jesus is clear in his word. Pray for those that persecute you. Pray for those who hate you. Love your enemies. That is so difficult. In this election season, bruh, it's even more difficult because it's people that do not care. They don't care about me. And I'm talking about as a Black woman, not even to get like this, because I really hate talking about politics, but I talk about God on my channel. How much deeper can I really go? If I could talk about God on my channel, I could talk about politics on my channel. There's people that hate me just because of the fact that I'm Black, bro. And it's God, you want me to pray for them? And he's yes, I do. I want you to pray for them, because who are you to not? Who are you to hate anybody? Who are you to hold hatred in your heart towards anybody? The way I see it, and the way that God's been showing me, been revealing it to me, is that love is restorative. Love heals. Love fixes things. Imagine if every single human being on this earth decided at the same time to just embrace love, bro, and put their differences to the side, put their biases to the side, put their racism to the side, put their everything to the side, and just treat each other the way that God wants us to treat each other. We all come from God. We are all neighbors. Imagine if we just said, okay, this is stupid. Why are we fighting? Why? We are all human at the end of the day. What's the deal? Why are we really fighting? What would a world like that look like? 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7 says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. Love never loses faith is always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. How do you love your neighbor? You be kind to them. You put them before yourself. You tell the truth. You hold them accountable. You show mercy. We know the fruits of the Spirit. One of the fruits of the Spirit is kindness. But we can talk about all the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I need God's strength to help me love my neighbor. Because if it was not for him, man, I would be walking around very angry, very angry, very hateful. But it's only because of God's mercy, God's compassion, God's love that I'm able to even try to extend that same compassion, love, and mercy to other people. Like the verse says, you must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. That's the only reason why any of it matters. Because God had compassion on me, I must have compassion on you and him and her. I have to have compassion for the person that is going to vote differently than me. It's hard. It's so hard. And this is just like a transparency video. Like, I'm struggling, bro. I really am. Philippians 2:3-4 says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. It got to come to a point where, like I said earlier, like you just feel like there's no point in fighting. Romans 12:10 says, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Love should trump, no pun intended, love should trump everything else. Jesus' words were really practical. They sound kind of intense and like unrealistic, but if you really sit with them, you realize they're practical. Love your enemies. Pray for those that persecute you. As in, just don't put out negativity into the world. There's already enough negativity out there. There's already enough hatred. Don't add to that. The next thing I would say, how do you love your neighbor? How do you actually love your neighbor? You tell the truth. You tell the truth, but you tell the truth in love. And Ephesians 4:15 says, instead we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. So if we're to grow more and more like Christ, yeah, tell the truth. Keep it 100 with people, but don't let feelings of hate inform your opinion. Because I think there's a right way to address every situation, every type of person. And the way that I be seeing Christians interact with people that might not think the same way as them and look the same way as them and believe the same things as them it's not with love. It's not out of love. It's not. We do a not so great job reaching those that are different from us, when that should be our thing. We should be known for our love, but we're not. That's a problem. That's a real problem. They should know us by our love. They might not even understand it, but that's what Christians should be identified with, is love. Period. How else do you love your neighbor? You hold them accountable. Proverbs 27:5 says, an open rebuke is better than hidden love. Romans 12:9 says, don't just pretend to love others. Really love them. Hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. We know that we're supposed to hate sin. That's it. Not people. You don't hate people. You hate sin. You hate evil. What do we look like? Holding on to hatred for a group of people. Like, we're not fighting each other. We're fighting the enemy. We're fighting sin. My enemy is Satan. It's not the next man or woman. I hate sin. My battle's with sin, not my neighbor. Like, I don't know. I think we're just distracted. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I think we're distracted. The last thing I'm going to say, how to actually love your neighbor. You show mercy. Ephesians 4:2 says, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. All of this takes the Lord's strength. Like, none of this we can do on our own. It takes so much to love those, to be patient with those who hate you. But we have to do it. Because if we don't do it, then wow, who's going to do it? We're the ones that God tells to do it. If we aren't even being an example, the example that God would have us to be, then no one's going to be the example. Colossians 3:12, since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourselves with tenderhearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. I think that summarizes the entire answer to the question, how do you actually love your neighbor? Clothe yourselves with mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. That's the formula right there, the equation right there. You really have to think about these things. That's what I have to say, you guys. God's working on me. He's working on me. I'm not gonna act like it's easy to love those that hate you, love your enemies, but it's a process. I don't know. I just pray that we can all just be a little bit more kind and more merciful with each other, because if we can't do that, how can we expect God to? So yeah, I pray that y'all take this with you. You sit with it. Just consider what I said. Like, walk in love, bro. Genuine love. Like, don't just say it, but live it, act it out. And yeah, that's it, y'all. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. And yeah, just be an example, be the salt and the light of the world, and spread the love that Jesus spread when he was on this earth. All right, I will talk to y'all all in my next video. I love you guys. Bye.
Get in your bag. Sashay away. Pretty for what?